As of now, 15 people are present in the class.
Fif-
Yeah,
15 members.
including you. Yeah.
So have you have 14 students from first year MA Psychology. All
Yes,
of you are
ma'am.
from MA Psychology.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, okay. I am Mrs. Mousumi Sethi. I am an assistant professor in psychology, Utkal University. We shall be discussing about your paper 4, that is social psychology, and today is the first block of your social psychology. Okay, may I switch off the camera now?
Yes, ma'am.
So all of you are from psychology background, or you are from different backgrounds?
We are from different backgrounds, ma'am.
Different background.
Different background. Okay, doesn't matter. We will be discussing about social psychology. You must be having a clear idea what psychology is. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Huh. So you must be having some idea about what is psychology. Hmm? What is psychology? Can anyone tell me what is psychology?
Ma'am, it's to study about human behavior. So that is.
It's the study about human behavior, or it's the study about human being, or how one behaves, the mental processes involved in attention, perception, memory, learning, and or we can say psychology is the scientific study of behavior, mental processes, and experiences of human being or living being. It also studies the behavior of animals also. That branch of psychology is known as comparative psychology or physiological psychology. So our concern or our focus or the topic of today's discussion is social psychology. So what is social psychology? Social psychology, we can say that it's the study of how people influence and how they relate to others. It emerged as the interface of psychology and sociology. We can say it's the combination of psychology and sociology that emerged in the early 20th century. So as you said, psychology analyzes the nature of human being, while sociology analyzes the nature of society. Social psychology analyzes the nature and relation of man to society, how man is related to society, how man behaves in a group. It doesn't study man as an individual entity or as a distinct individual, rather how man behaves in a social situation, in a group, or how the behavior or the presence of others influence the behavior of man. The sphere of social psychology is social and its focus is on individual, or we can say that it's the study of individual in a social situation. The social situation can be a person to person interaction, it can be a person to group interaction, and it can also be a group related to another group, how one group interacts with another group. All these things are studied by social psychology. Am I audible? Social psychologists use scientific methods to study how we perceive people and social events, how do we influence each other, and how we also get influenced. It studies the social relation, the communication, the group dynamics that works within a group. And this branch of psychology emerged during the 20th century, as I said. So what happened in the last century, there occurred a lot of technological development that that changed our lifestyle, that changed the scenario of education and knowledge. It gave rise to new social realities, and these new social realities generated new problems, and this need manifested itself in development of two, sci- two sciences regarded as parent of social psychology, that is psychology and social sociology. So societies started manifesting themselves through the activities of people, through communication, interaction, and in turn shape the behavior of individual. The study of social psychology helps us to understand the dynamics of human behavior in social situation, and what effects do these situations have on individual, and what ways are these situations get changed by the behavior of the presence of other people. It intrudes the social life by providing practical recommendation in various areas. These practical needs of the discipline have been increased by the increased demand for efficient management in the areas of industry, education, health, mass communication system, struggle against antisocial behavior, and public services and sports. So how social psychology, or what are the definitions of social psychology given by different psychologists? Floyd Alport, he defined social psychology as the scientific study of experience and behavior of individual in relation to other individual, group, and culture. And another similar definition was also given by G.W. Alport. This definition was given by Floyd Alport, and G.W. Alport also gave a similar definition, which states that it's a discipline that tries to understand and explain how the thought, feeling, and behavior of an individual are influenced by the actual imagined or implied presence of others. So these two definitions give rise to some elements. That is, social psychology is a scientific study of experience and behavior of individual, group, and culture. So we can discuss these part by part. That is, social psychology is scientific in nature. The first part of the definition shows that social psychology is scientific in nature. So how it is scientific in nature? It's scientific in nature, or it's scientific in its approach because it studies a large range of topics about the behavior of individual in the society, or the influence of group or society on the individual, or influence of group or society on the behavior of the individual. Usually, we use our common sense explanations and literary works that describes, or that tells about the interpersonal relations, love, jealousy, aggression, helping behavior, and the role of individual in group. But social psychology adopts a scientific method. So it adopts a scientific method in studying all these things, and these methods that we will discuss later. Now let us discuss about the three basic processes that are used in any scientific method. How social psychology is a scientific method, that we will discuss in the method portion. So what are the three basic steps? Any scientific method actually, uh, the first step of any scientific method is the collection of data. where the data is collected through careful observation or through using some scientific or reliable methods. So first step is data collection, and second step is the ordered integration of this data or the observation and statement of general principles out of this integrated observation or the data we have collected. Once data is collected, we try to integrate or organize the data in a ordered form, and out of that we extract or conclude a general principle. And the third step is, once a general principle is deducted, concluded, we try to utilize this principle to predict other future observations. That means basing on the present basing on the present general principle deducted from the carefully collected data, we can predict similar things for future. So social psychology this way is scientific in nature. It studies the experience and behavior of individual. That is the another portion or another portion of the definition of social psychology. So it's typically explain human behavior as a result of interaction of the mental processes and the social situation in which that behavior occurs. So Kurt Lewin was a psychologist. His famous heuristic formula states that behavior can be viewed as a function of person and environment, that he explained, or that he presented as capital B is equals to small f bracket P and E. B here is behavior. Behavior is the function of person and environment, which has been presented in a formula B equals to F bracket P and E. So considering the following situation, why do people behave so? Why do people help other? What is jealousy? What is helping behavior? What is love and affection? What are the main cause and effects of all these things? So social psychology also studies the cause of social behavior and thought. It studies the behavior of individual as well as theories about the cause and factors that may lie behind a particular type of behavior. Why the people behave so? Why they so this type of behavior? Why the same individual show different type of behavior in different type of situation, though the individual is same? Why the same individual behaves differently with differently with different type of different people? These all can be explained by the theories developed by social psychologists. It studies the cause and the factors that lie behind the particular behavior and the phenomena. So this is all about your social psychology. Then we will discuss about in today's class we will discuss about the methods of social psychology. What methods actually social psychology uses to do researches or study the individual behavior or to develop theories. Then we will study about social cognition and person perception, attributional process, attributional error, all these things we will be discussing. So let's start with methods of social psychology. That is your unit 3. I think uh, unit 3 of this block MPC-4. So what is mean by method? What is method? And to study any discipline, methods are required, and methods actually refer to, or these are the procedures for gathering information about any study or about any discipline. And methodology is usually refers to all the aspects of implementation of methods. The different methods used in gathering information is known as methodology, whereas the particular method for gathering information is known as method. And uh, the methodology for any discipline involves the development of procedure for making various kind of observation, which provides the building block for theories and generalization. So here uh, we will discuss about different methods or scientific methods used in um, mm, social psychology. As I say, scientific method usually involves three things. First is careful collection of observation or data, and the second is ordered integration of these observations into generalized principle. Ordered integration of these observation into generalized principles, hypotheses and theories. And third is testing the adequacy of these theories or hypotheses, whether they are uh, helpful in predicting the future observation. So first is careful collection, second is ordered integration and development of theories, third is predictability of these principles. So there are actually five methods, basically five methods used in social psychology. First is your observation method, that is the basic method in any type of scientific discipline. So, another one is correlational method. Third one is your experimental method. Fourth one is your quasi experimental method. Fifth one is ethnographic studies. These are the five methods used in social psychology. So now coming to observational method. What is observational method? And it is the most old method used in any type of scientific discipline, even in also social psychology. And we can say it as a systematic study of a phenomena and systematic recording of the phenomena. So, observation is a systematic study and recording of any phenomena. It's it can either be natural or it can be organized in a setup. So there are two types of observation. One is naturalistic observation and another one is um, created or observation done in a laboratory. So naturalistic observation refers to the observation which are done in the natural environment or the event as it occurs without interfering into the event or the situation. Suppose you want to study the pro-social or helping behavior of individual in a group or when some accident occurs. So you cannot actually create a situation where a person will be facing a accident or road accident. So you have to be there in a situation where actually the accident has occurred, and there you have to observe how people behave in the situation. So this is naturalistic observation, and another one is your laboratory based observation, where you create a similar situation, or artificial observation where you create a similar situation in a laboratory condition and observe the behavior of people. So this way observation can be categorized. And another type of distinction mm, of observation can be formal or informal observation. And this is also similar to this our naturalistic and artificial observation. So observation actually follows two stages. First is describing behavior, and once the behavior is described, the cause is identified. So description starts with observation of behavior in a natural or an artificial situation that is relevant for our study, and this may be based on the question like what people do in such situation, how they behave in such situation, how they react in such situation. Can various behavior be classified in a systematic way, and how people differ in their behavior. So this is describing the behavior. Then through the method of systematic observation, we can conclude that why people differ, or why there is difference in behavior, and this will help us to find out the cause behind such behavior. And as given in your book, observational methods can be relatively informal and unstructured, and it can also be formal or structured. Formal method of observation can be used when it is possible to record actions relevant to the research question without disturbing the occurrence of behavior that we discussed under naturalistic observation. And one more classification I was telling, that is participant observation and non-participant observation. So observation can be categorized uh, as naturalistic observation, artificial observation, or it can be non-participant or participant observation. In non-participant observation, what happens, the observers is not within the group, he observes the behavior from outside the group. Suppose you want to study the helping behavior of people in an accident situation. You are one of the bystander of the accident, and you also behave like helping the person who is experiencing accident. You are part of the group, you are part of that group, and you are the participant. Or else you can stay away from the group at a distance and observe how people are behaving. This is non-participant observation. Usually while studying a culture or a particular community, we can stay with the community and observe their culture, their behavior, their how they interact, all these things. Or we can stay outside the community and be a non-participant observer. So these are the types of observation. Then comes the correlational method or method of correlation. Correlation, as the name suggests, two things are related. Correlation, how the relation is, how these two variables are related, how they vary, how change in one variable influence the change in another variable. So it's a relationship between two variable, such that systematic increase or decrease in the magnitude of one variable is always accompanied by the systematic increase or decrease in the magnitude of the other variable. So here we study the relationship between two events, two happenings. Suppose we want to study rain gives gives rain and good yield of crop. Uh, Hour of study and performance. With increase in hour of study, the performance also increases. This is a hypothesis that when the hours of study increases, the performance or the mark achieved also becomes greater. So here the hour of study is correlated to the marks obtained by the student. If it increases, that also marks also increases. or it can be vice versa. If the with decrease in hour of study, the mark also decreases. So here there lies a positive correlation, um, and when increase in one variable is related or mm, leads to decrease in the other variable, that is negative correlation. Correlation can either be positive or negative. Positive, in positive relation correlation, increase in one variable also leads to increase in the other variable, or decrease in that variable leads to decrease in the other variable. In negative correlation, increase in one variable is related to decrease in the other variable. It is usually expressed in terms of plus 100 or minus 100. That means the correlation can range between 100 to minus 100. Positive correlation refers to plus 100, negative refers to minus 100. That means these two are 100% correlated. Then comes your experimental method, and this is the most used method in any scientific discipline. And uh, there are some features of experimental method. The significant feature is random assignment of subjects to a particular group. Here, one more thing I want to say about correlational method: the relationship between two variables are not causal in correlation. That means this is not the A is not the cause of B, neither B is the effect of A. But in experimental method, we study the cause and effect relationship, or the effect of independent variable, the effect of independent variable on the dependent variable. So here we are studying how the independent variable changes the dependent variable. So there are some concept in experimental method. Experiment usually refers to a well controlled test of hypothesis about cause and effect. It's a well controlled test where we test the hypothesis about the cause and effect. The cause is the independent variable, effect is the dependent variable. Hypothesis is a statement or prediction about the cause and effect, what we are going to find out through the experiment. And variable is something that can occur with different value, or that varies, or that can be measured. There are two types of variable: independent variable, a variable that represents the hypothesis, that represents the hypothesized cause, or it is the cause of the experiment, and it is usually controlled by the experimenter, and it is independent of what the participant does. While dependent variable is the hypothesized effect, and it shows how change in independent variable brings about a change in the effect. Then but there are usually two groups in any experiment. One is experimental group and another one is control group. The experimental group is also known as treatment group, which receives the treatment, or which receives the independent variable, in which the hypothesized cause is present, whereas control group receives either no treatment, or a standard treatment whose effect is already known, or a placebo. It is a group in which the hypothesized effect is present, not the cause. Experimental group receives the independent variable, control group doesn't receive any independent variable. Then statistics is also involved in experimentation or experimental method. Statistics refers to the mathematical technique for determining the certainty with which a sample of data can be used to draw generalization. These are mathematical techniques to find out the result, or the how the change in independent variable has changed the dependent variable, or the effect of independent variable. One more significant feature is random assignment. Random assignment refers to a system of assigning participant to experimental and the control group. Here the experimenter has the liberty to assign a group of people to the experimental group and another to the control group, so that each participant has an equal chance of being assigned to any group. There is this can only be done through random assignment. So this is known as experimental method. Another method is known as quasi experimental method, where the researcher has no control over uh, the situation, and he cannot manipulate the independent variable. He doesn't have the power to manipulate the independent variable. And the main difference between experimental and quasi experimental method is lack of or absence of random assignment. It is usually quasi experimental, conducted in a natural everyday life situation over which the researcher has less than complete control, where the experiments cannot be used for ethical or practical reasons. The experimenter cannot conduct experiments uh, because of some ethical or practical reasons. Then only quasi experimental can be done. Here the researcher studies the pre-existing groups, because he doesn't have the liberty to assign subjects to these two groups. The two randomized experiment, by contrast, is one in which the researcher has complete control over the key features of the setting, but here he doesn't have control over the setting or the situation. So, one example of quasi-experimental study can be discussed um, by discussing the experimental report by Black and Bevan, that is given in your book, where they ask the people or subject or the group to complete a short questionnaire measure of tendency to engage in aggressive behavior under one of the four conditions. Four conditions were there. These are the pre-existing condition. Actually, the experimenter has not created those conditions. The four conditions are: while waiting in a line outside a hall to see violent movie, people waiting in line to see a non-violent movie, and people who have just seen a violent movie, and people who have just seen a non-violent movie. These are the four situations, four conditions, and the people in this group are asked to complete a short questionnaire measure. And what the researcher found, here the researcher is Black and Bevan, what he found is those waiting to see a violent film showed higher aggression scores than those who were waiting to see a non-violent film. The researcher here wanted to know how the uh, aggressive behavior is shown by people who are going to watch a movie on violent and non-violent film. So the people who are going to watch a non-violent film showed less aggression than the people who were going to watch a aggressive film. Similarly, people who had seen a aggressive film showed more aggressive behavior. That means they scored high in the aggressive questionnaire compared to the people who had seen a non-violent people. And out of these four groups, people who had seen a violent movie showed more violent, scored more violent in the aggressive questionnaire. Here, here, uh, here the experimenter is not actually assigned the subject to different group. Rather, he is studying a group that is pre-designed, or they have already decided to see a film of different category. And this this type of method is very helpful in doing different life situations. And the fifth type of method used in social psychology is ethnography. Ethnography literally means ethnos and graphia. Ethnos is a Greek word that means folk or people, while graphia stands for writing. So, ethnography means portrait of people. It is a written description of particular culture, the custom, belief, behavior based on information collected through field work. It's the art and science of describing a group or culture. The description may be a small tribal group in an exotic land, or classroom in a uh, middle class suburbia, as defined by David M. Fetterman. It's a qualitative research method. It has its roots in anthropology and sociology, but it has become a model for research in social psychology also. It's a basic form of social research involving making observation, gaining data from informant, constructing hypotheses, and acting upon them. The ethnographer participate actively in the research environment but doesn't structure it. That means he becomes an he does participant observation in the research environment, but unlike experimental method, he doesn't structure the setting or the environment. Its approach is discovery based, and the aim being to depict the activity and perspective of actors. To do this, the ethnographer participate in the people's daily life for a period of time, watching actually what happens within the group, listening what is said, asking questions, studying documents of that group. He collects whatever data is available about that group to throw light on the issues with which the research is concerned. We can say that ethnography is a multi-method form of research. So this is about the methods of. One more thing, the steps in ethnographic method includes, he ethnographer starts with the selection of a particular culture, review the literature related to that culture, and identifies what are the variables. Then he goes about gaining entrance into that group. That means he approaches the group and he tries to set stage for cultural immersion of the ethnographer in the culture. He enters into the group, stays with them. It is it is not unusual for ethnographer to live in the culture for months. Even yes, some ethnographers have even stayed for years in that particular culture or group. Then the middle stage of the ethnographic method involves uh, gaining informants, using them to gain yet more informant in through the process, snowball process of getting informant, and gathering data in the form of observational transcripts and interview recording. Then data analysis is done, and theory is developed. And some different type of ethnographic methods are macroethnography, microethnography, emic perspective, and ethic of perspective, situational reduction. These are the types of ethnographic method. Now we will discuss about only 13 minutes are left. We will discuss about social cognition and person perception. That is your unit 2. Social cognition, what is social cognition, what is person perception, what is attribution theory, and what are the errors of attribution. So what is social cognition? Social cognition is a subtopic of social psychology which focuses on how people process, store, and apply information about other people and social situation. It focuses on the role that cognitive processes play in our social interaction. The way we think about others play a major role in how we think, feel, and interact with the world around us. So this is social cognition. Now, what is person perception? Person perception is the way in which individual focuses on specific traits to form an overall impression of others. Some central traits serve to organize person's impression and provide a framework for interpreting the information. So, to know about person perception, central trait, all these things, it is better to discuss about an experiment by Harold Kelly. Uh, he gave a group of students one of the two description of a professor where the students have never met the professor, but they were about to have a discussion with him in the coming days. So what were the two description about the professor? In one case, the students were told that the professor was a warm person, industrious, critical, practical, and determined person. But in the second condition, the students were told that the same professor was a cold person, industrious, critical, practical, and determined person. So here, the crucial difference was the substitution of the word cold for warm. The first group were said that the professor was warm as well as industrial, critical, practical, and determined. But in the second case, the students or the group of students were told that the professor was cold, industrious, critical, practical, and determined. And what happened? Surprisingly, this substitution of the word cold for warm made a drastic change in the way the professor was viewed in the two conditions. And the students were told that he was cold. They rated the professor far less positively after discussion than those who were told that he was warm. Although the behavior of the professor was constant across two conditions, actually the professor uh, show did not show any change in his behavior. He was constant in his behavior. But those who were told he was warm rated him more positively than those who were told that he was cold. So the Kelly's experiment, now considered a classic, illustrate an early view of person perception, which concentrated on the way in which individual focus on a particular trait while forming overall impression of others. According to this perspective, certain traits plays unusually large role in determining a general impression or forming a general impression. These traits are known as central traits, and these central traits helps to organize the information or impression and provide a framework for interpreting the information that is received subsequently. Once the central traits develop, they help in uh, processing the information that is received subsequently. So there are two models of impression formation. One is cognitive algebra and another one is additive. The one is additive algebra and another one is averaging model. These are known as cognitive algebra. What happens in additive model? Uh, in additive model, mm, we simply add together the bit of information we are having about a person to form any type of judgment about the person. While making any impression or judgment about a person, we simply add together the bits of information. Suppose we want to know a person, or we are judging or creating a information about a person who is adventurous, bold, and caring. We simply assign each one of these uh, adjective a value uh, on some hypothetical scale, then we add them together. Suppose we rated the person, the adventurousness of the person is 4, while boldness is 5 and caring is 9 on a 11-point scale. So we create an overall impression of 18. That is 4 plus 5 plus 9. And we conclude that the person is positive, or we create a positive impression about the person. Uh, but in averaging model, we start forming the impression in the same way like the additive model, but one additional step is involved here, that is, we average the number 459 equals to 18, and here we have observed the three adjective or behavior type parameters of the person, and we make an average by dividing 18 by 3, and we get a score of 6. So when any additional information is added, we add a particular score to the existing 18 number score. Suppose we come to know that the person is also neat, and we have given a score of 2 to this neatness. Now 18 becomes 20, and there are 4 adjective about the person, and we get a score of 5. So what happens, the score of 6 or average of 6, now it's the average, now the average is 5, and that actually doesn't number 4 and 5 actually doesn't create a large difference, or that doesn't make any big change in the impression we have formed about the person. One more, how the impression is formed. To know this, we can discuss a classic study by Luchins, where he gave his subjects a 2-paragraph description of a boy called Jim. So, in one paragraph, Jim was described as walking to school with others, participating in a number of activities in group. We can say that he was portrayed as an extrovert boy in first paragraph. But in second paragraph, he was doing all these activities, but he was doing it alone, all alone. There was nobody, no one else. And he was described or portrayed as an introvert boy. So subject were presented with these two paragraphs, but the order of presenting these two paragraphs was reversed according to condition. So when the subject were asked to form an overall impression about Jim, the subject's responses showed that there is a strong primacy effect. Primacy effect. What is primacy effect? Primacy effect refers to the condition in which early information or the information given first has a stronger impact than the information given later. If the subject were exposed to the paragraph where Jim was portrayed as an extrovert boy, they found Jim considerably more extroverted than they had read the introvert paragraph, and vice versa. If they were given the introvert paragraph first, they formed the impression that Jim was an introvert boy. So the primacy or the information one gets earlier or in the first stage plays an important role in forming information, and many of the works has been done on the primacy effect to confirm actually whether actually primacy effect is there or not, and the studies confirm that there is a primacy effect. While on the other hand, recency effect or a phenomenon known as recency effect is also there, and the recency effect occurs when later information is given more credence, or later information overrules the primary information, or the information given in the given letter actually helps in forming the impression. But uh, there are some condition under which recency effect occurs. First is one when people are asked specifically to make a second evaluation following the presentation of the first information. In this case, the later information becomes more important than the earlier information, and there is a effect of recency. Second condition is one where uh, there is a relatively large time span between the presentation of the first information or the initial exposure and the second exposure. Recency effect is likely to occur. Finally, later information is given heavier weight if the task is one in which people assume that practice might improve performance. So these are the recency and primacy effect. Now we will discuss about attribution, or how the cause of any behavior can be explained. Attribution theories explain how people come to understand the reason behind their own and others' behavior. One of the basic issue of attribution theory is concerned with whether behavior is due to the situation or to the disposition of the person being observed. So here two terms are there: situation or disposition, or situational cause and dispositional cause. Behavior will be attributed to a situational cause or external cause when the external reasons are more likely or more visible. Conversely, behavior will be attributed to dispositional factor or internal factor when the external cause is not visible. So there are the co-variation variation principle that works behind it, that has been introduced by Harold Kelly, and he suggested that there are many possible cause and effect relationship inherent in a situation that provide a possible explanation for a behavior. We try to analyze this relationship in order to find out a particular cause of a behavior. The covariation principle states that cause will be chosen to explain an effect is a cause that is present when the effect is present and absent when the effect is also absent. So according to this covariation principle, an observer can use one of the three specific type of cause to explain the effect. The actor, the entity, and the circumstance. The actor is the individual who shows the behavior. The entity is the target person at which the behavior is shown or directed. Circumstance, the means the situation, the setting, and or the environment under which the behavior is shown. And mm, but how do we know which explanation will be correct? So for this we need to know about consensus, consistency, and distinctiveness. Consensus refers to the degree to which other people react similarly in the same situation. Consistency refers to the degree to which the actor behaves in the same way in other situations, while distinctiveness refers to the extent to which the same behavior occurs in relation to other people or stimuli. There are some errors in attribution. That means attributional theory state that people are fairly rational and logical in processing of information, but still they are prone to some systematic biases. The biases are fundamental attribution error, halo effect, person positivity bias, and assume similarity. And the fundamental attributional error is one. Now, when we see someone acting friendly towards another person, we are more likely to assume that he is a friendly person, an outgoing person, whereas the person may think himself or herself that he is introvert, shy, and attributes his or her friendliness to something about the situation, such as earlier gregarious behavior on the part of the person, on the part of the person whom he or she is acting friendly. The situation exemplifies the fundamental attribution bias. This is called fundamental because of its prevalence or because of its pervasiveness, whereby people, when acting as raters of other, they are more likely to attribute the behavior they view as indicative of stable trait disposition. But when they act as self-rater, they evaluate themselves, they are likely to perceive their own behavior as more affected by specific situational influences. This is fundamental bias error. Then halo effect refers to the phenomena in which the initial familiarity that a person has positive trait is used to infer other uniformly positive character in other situations also. For example, finding a person is friendly and clear hearted may lead us to believe that he is also a helpful and sociable person. um, Although it may not be, may be true, it is not necessarily in all cases. Then positivity bias refers to looking for good in others, uh, which has been shown to apply a wide range of situations, reflecting the tendency to rate others in a predominantly positive way. Persons in experiment tend to elicit positive rating, and people tend to over attribute good outcomes to causes internal causes and bad outcome to external causes. Public figures are usually evaluated as positively. People have a tendency to view others positively. So why this happens? Simple explanation is a Pollyanna principle, which operates to color our perception. According to this view, we enjoy being surrounded by a pleasant world. We don't want unpleasant people around us. That's why we are more likely to assume others around us as pleasant, good, and well mannered people. Then, fourth one is assumption of similarity. People not only rate others in a positive way, but also they tend to assume that others are similar to themselves. This tendency is known as assumed similarity bias. So these are the attributional biases. The block 2 will be discussed tomorrow.
Guys, no attendance is happening. How are they tracking who's attending and who's not?